You walk up to a theater, hand over $15, and step into a dark room for 2 hours. It feels like a simple transaction. But what did that movie actually cost you? To answer that, we have to look at a basic law of human nature. We want an infinite number of things, but we are bound by strict physical limits. There is only so much money in our bank accounts, and only 24 hours in a day. Economists call this friction scarcity. Because our resources are capped, we are constantly forced into a corner. Taking any single action means actively choosing to abandon another potential action. The full cost of that movie combines the $15 in cash with the value of whatever else you could have done with those 2 hours, like studying for an upcoming exam. That invisible alternative is your opportunity cost. Most people overlook this hidden ledger. But acknowledging the foregone alternatives turns every simple action into a conscious trade, ensuring you know exactly what you are paying in time and potential. Economists assume that people act purposefully to achieve their goals. To do that rationally, you have to constantly weigh your options and deliberately pick the path that carries the lowest opportunity cost. The stakes of your specific situation can drastically change that math. If you are getting a comfortable A in a class, the cost of going to the movie instead of studying is low. But if you are borderline failing, the opportunity cost of those 2 hours in the theater suddenly skyrockets. Sometimes the math gets complicated by what we've already spent. Imagine buying a non-refundable ticket to an outdoor concert, only to find out a hurricane is hitting the venue. That money is gone. It is a sunk cost, a past investment that cannot be recovered. A rational actor completely ignores it when deciding what to do next. Instead of looking backward at money you can never get back, you focus strictly on the immediate next step. You compare the specific benefit of standing in the rain against the very real cost of getting soaked. This is marginal decision-making. Economic rationality relies on logic over emotion. It requires moving forward based on current value, rather than trying to justify costs that have already disappeared. When we zoom out from a single person to a whole society, the constraints of time and money scale up. On a national level, those limited resources become the factors of production, the total labor force, the available technology, and physical capital like machines. We can map out exactly what a society can achieve with those resources using a model called the Production Possibilities Frontier. It plots the absolute mathematical limit of what a country can physically produce if it puts every single worker and machine to use. Imagine a country deciding how to divide its energy between just 2 sectors. It can deploy its workforce to harvest millions of bushels of wheat, or it can send them to factories to manufacture clothing. Just like an individual giving up study time for a movie, the country faces a strict trade-off.
Because resources are capped, producing 1 million more shirts requires the nation to pull farmers out of the field and surrender a precise amount of wheat. Where a nation decides to sit on this line is a revealing metric. It forces governments to lay their priorities bare and shows exactly what direct sacrifices they are imposing on their citizens to reach their goals. In the real world, this frontier is rarely a perfectly straight line. It bows outward into a convex curve. This happens because resources are not perfectly adaptable across different industries. If you take highly specialized software engineers and suddenly order them to harvest wheat, they are not going to be very efficient. You lose a massive amount of tech output, but you gain very little agricultural yield in return. As you continue pushing a society toward total single-industry specialization, you have to scrape the bottom of the barrel for inputs. The closer you get to the edge, the steeper the penalty becomes. This is the law of increasing opportunity cost, but at least sitting on that outer edge means every resource is active. If a country mismanages its economy or suffers widespread unemployment, it drops deep inside the boundary of the curve. When a society is stuck in this dead zone, there are empty factories and idle workers. They are actively failing to reach their potential, leaving massive amounts of wealth and stability entirely on the table. If this curve represents the absolute physical limit of our production, does that mean a society is permanently trapped by its current scarcity? Not quite. Nations can expand their wealth by moving the frontier itself. When a country grows its population or improves its technology, the boundary shifts, allowing the economy to produce volumes of goods that were physically unreachable before. Sometimes an advancement only benefits one specific sector.
If engineers invent a more efficient tractor, agricultural output surges while manufacturing capacity remains fixed. The curve pivots, resetting the ratio of wheat to shirts for the entire economy. Historically, improvements in tools and techniques are what allow civilizations to produce more with less, consistently pushing back the limits of scarcity. But mapping the limits is only half the problem. A nation still has to decide exactly where it wants to sit on that ever-shifting frontier, and that requires coordinating the actions of millions of people. In a command economy, central government planning dictates all production. Planners calculate quotas, assign labor, and decide what gets built, severely limiting individual choice. Contrast this with a free market economy. Here, the decentralized, individual choices of everyday people act as an invisible hand, naturally steering resources toward profitable sectors. In practice, most modern nations blend both approaches into a mixed economy. Whether you are an individual weighing a movie against a grade, or a nation balancing agriculture against manufacturing, the math is the same. Navigating these constraints is the only way to effectively allocate the limited resources we have.